Good afternoon and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Tane McKeage and this video is one of the first gear review videos that I've done. Now I know in my initial scoping video, which is getting close to 2 years ago, I said I would be doing gear reviews. I moved away from that idea over time. Today I want to compare the photos done with my iPhone compared with the photos that I take with my DSLR, because all the talk has been that the gap between cameras and phone cameras has been converging, and over time I bought this around about 3 months ago. And over time, I've been learning to use the iPhone. Initially, I bought the iPhone for B-roll, but I found that my GoPro, which I'm still using for my speaking to camera, was actually a lot more stable than the iPhone. And if I'm going to use the iPhone for video work, I'm going to need a gimbal, and the sort of gimbal that I need for my iPhone is very expensive, which leads me to which iPhone it is. Now what I've bought is the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which is not the latest, but it's top end iPhone stuff, and it's more than capable of producing 4K video and pretty fantastic photos. So today I'm going out under probably not favourable conditions by any stretch of the imagination. It's mid-afternoon and my plan is to be back probably before dusk and take photos of various subjects. And the photos that you're looking at right now are actually photos that I've taken with it already. Some of those were JPEGs when I took them, and others I've taken in Apple ProRes RAW, which is probably the biggest thing that I notice, is that the ProRes is actually very similar in the way it behaves to the Canon RAW negatives as well. So I'm off. I'm probably only going to get a few shots, but we'll try and cover off everything while we're going around. Thank you. Welcome back. So the first image I took is the Manawatu River from just on the east side of the Manawatu, the Fitzherbert Bridge. And it's a photo I've taken before. Very few of these photos will be of new subjects, just simply comparing between the two. And what I wanted to test here was, as much as anything, depth of field. And the first thing I noticed was I used my 24-70 zoom, assuming that half one, or a 50% reduction in focal length was the equivalent to 24. But when I put the iPhone out, it's quite significantly more than that. And so if I'm going to test that again, I'll need to use my 15 to 35 mil zoom lens to get the same effect. But I think you'll see the idea. I'm just really wanting to see whether the iPhone corrects for the huge depth in the image and makes the changes that are necessary. Thank you. The second images are taken from the top of the stairs of Tane, which featured in a video not that very long ago. I'll put the link up to that above. It's another wide shot. This time, instead of using the half focal length, I used just the ordinary middle range focal length, which turned out to be a lot closer to the 24 mil length. So that's interesting that Apple see effectively double human vision as being normal type width. What I'm also trying to do in these longer shots is to capture the dynamic range, including plenty of sky and plenty of foreground, because usually that's a challenge for any camera to expose both the foreground and the sky correctly and getting good cloud detail. With my camera, I shoot all of these sort of photos on manual and underexposed via stop to get a decent sort of exposure in the sky. So if that gives you an idea, I still haven't worked out how to do that with the iPhone, but if somebody can let me know, then that'd be great. Thank you. Third photo is just off Centre Road here, where I did a panorama some time ago, just before I went and walked the track up the Whanganui Valley. Now, the idea with this one is, again, just to test both depth of field and the dynamic range, to test the dynamic range. So this will be a reasonable test. That's all three photos are focused on different directions, so that'll get a bit of an idea of how it copes with that. Now, I'm going to head on to the next image and we'll go from there. Thank you. Image number 4, and I'm at the Manawatu Gorge, just at the start of the western end of the new road. Now, this is where I think the iPhone may have come into its own, in the sense that the wide angle on the iPhone well and truly took in the scene, whereas my 24 to 70 at its widest point struggled a bit, but that's okay. Again, another contrasty shot on a hazy day with some nice cloud. The DSLR, I'm always underexposing via full stop. I'd love to be able to do the same with the iPhone and just see how that affects the final image. Anyway, on to my next stop. Thank you. Right, the 5th and 6th images have been taken at Ashhurst. The first one down by the Manawatu River Bridge, and the 6th one at the Domain, looking back up into the wind farm and the work sites for the new road. So that's really where things are at there. Still looking at the dynamic range and sharpness from front to back. It'll be interesting to see how that works. I noticed in the first few that I took on RAW that the clouds are quite grainy. Whether that is that using Photoshop RAW or Camera RAW to bring them up makes them grainy, I don't know, but that'll be very interesting. Thank you, and on to the next. My last image is an old shearing shed just out of Ashhurst. It's been a favourite of mine for a long time, although the usual perspective is no longer feasible because the railway has become overgrown and there's really no sight from the road unless you bring a ladder, and I'm not really prepared to do that. Shooting into the sun with both cameras, both without shades, which will be interesting. I think the iPhone will cope pretty well. The big camera may not, because of the big element out the front, but the wall of the shearing shed is in shade, and so consequently the dynamic range is quite huge, and it'll be interesting to see whether it's sharp from front to back. In the iPhone photo, I'm pretty sure that the DSLR will be fine. Good morning. Now, I'm wrapping this video up on Sunday morning, following having processed all the photos and have virtually constructed the video. I'll be pretty quick about this. What's my impression of the iPhone as a camera? I'm very impressed. It's never going to replace my DSLR, but it will definitely be the camera that I have with me most of the time. It's a delight. The Apple ProRes RAW is amazing. I find it very easy to process in Photoshop and in Camera Raw. It's probably a thinner, to use an old film term, it's probably a thinner negative than the Canon negative. It doesn't take as kindly to dramatic movements and exposure or contrast and those sorts of things. And the reality is that the iPhone has a place for me as being the camera I will carry most of the time, and will not replace the DSLR. And one day when I go to mirrorless, it won't replace a mirrorless camera. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you're new here, please subscribe. If you have enjoyed the video, please like the video with using the thumbs up button. If you want to give me some feedback, please do so by putting your comments on the YouTube page below where the video is embedded. I really do appreciate those who watch, and particularly those who watch this far. Thank you very much.